What's up, everybody? Welcome to Talkin Cinema with Mike. During this podcast, I talk about the magic of film with a special guest, and we break down what we particularly enjoyed about the movie. We go from acting and writing to cinematography and film editing. Today, my special guest is Blake Walton, who is a screenwriter and playwright, and today we are going to be discussing the importance of screenwriting. Great to have you today, Blake.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I love your podcast.
Thank you. So, tell me, what is it like in the life of a screenwriter?
It's how do I say? It's lonely. Screenwriting is very much like playwriting in that you're setting up a template for something that is going to be in another form. Um, the screenplay itself, unlike a novel, is not the thing that people read, and the play itself is not necessarily something somebody's going to read. So what you are doing is all the the pre-writing that it takes to make a film come alive. A good, and we can discuss exactly what I think makes a good screenplay and not. But yeah, that's what it is. I don't do this full time, so for me, it's a wonderful diversion from other things that I do as a director. And
Do you enjoy doing more original screenplays or adapted screenplays?
I like both, and I've done both.
Is
I
one more challenging than the other?
uh, they are both they're both different concerns. An original, obviously, is a world that you create from nothing, really, and it'll follow a structure that you create. But when you adapt, you either you have a structure to begin with, and something to, but when you adapt from a novel or from a play, for instance, um, you are opening it up in a different way. A play is run by dialogue. A play is almost all dialogue, and it's people behaving on a stage. And a novel clearly is a different form as well. So what you do in a screenplay is open it up in a lot of ways. With a play, you'll maybe have uh, play to screenplay. You have new locations where you might bring something up, but also a screenplay depends on both the interaction between dialogue and behavior or action, and there is there's more action in a screenplay, and you utilize that action, and it's a wonderful advantage because you can have an idea that's being expressed, and it can be visual, which is a beautiful way to make something happen. I was looking at the screenplay for Joker, for instance, and we get to see sort of what's inside his mind and behavior because of the action that's placed within the screenplay. Um,
Right.
yeah,
And it was adapted from the DC comic books
exactly.
where
Yeah,
Joker was originally created.
yeah. Um, so
What
yes,
would you say are, oh wait, go ahead, Blake. I interrupted.
no, I don't know where I was going. So,
Oh, what would you say, like, what movies have the best screenplays?
I think that's subjective. It's really subjective. Um, I think a good screenplay to me is a screenplay that sets out is becomes a template for a director to interpret and a DP or a cinematographer to interpret. If it's there on paper, um, no matter what the form it is, if it's translatable from paper on the page into through a camera and into a film, then that to me makes a really good screenplay. Um, I think you can talk about good dialogue, and whether or not the action shots, um, or and finally the camera work that really goes into it expresses some of the things that are within the story and the dialogue.
Hmm. Like I would say, like some of the best original screenplays, like from movies that I've read, or like just from watching the movie, I know it's a good screenplay. For me, it's um like for original, like Parasite and Fargo and
Yes.
No Country for Old Men, that's tapped in my bed. Like Parasite, Fargo. I'm just thinking,
Well, you've hit two.
Citizen Kane. Like that's
Yeah.
original.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't seen the screenplay for Citizen Kane, but I imagine that it is. There's a use of. First of all, I'm sure it was storyboarded, which means that it's translated from scene by scene, from or shot by shot, into a cartoon form, so that because the camera angles are important. Sometimes, if you look at a Hitchcock film like Dial M for Murder, which is an adaptation from a play, but there are parts of it that are all shots, shot list. That's not done as much as often anymore, unless it's really important. Like Joker, which is, I agree with you, is a fine screenplay, and Fargo, um, I think because is phenomenal. And I would have to think about exactly why that is. It has to do with dialogue, incredibly interesting characters, and circumstances. Um, and also, it's well written on the page so that it can translate easily to a director and a cinematographer. Um, but Joker has a couple shots that are important to the director and the cinematographer, like a close up of the eyes might be really important. I imagine if you saw the screenplay for Chicago the musical, which is claimed that it's the entire film is seen through the eyes of Roxy. The first thing we see are her eyes, um, and so that kind of follows through. But even if it doesn't, at least it introduces us. It's the opening shot for us, that kind of thing. So it's subjective. What makes a really good screenplay? But we sure know it when we see it on paper. What do you think, Michael, when you saw any of those? Do you think it was a combination of the dialogue and sort of the action, which I think is highly important, by the way? Action is the narrative, and it needs to be concise and very simple. And I think it must include only what you would see, and not necessarily like a psychological uh, what somebody is fully thinking about. Um, um, but what do you think would what do you think makes a good screenplay?
Um, Sharp and witty dialogue,
Yeah, yeah, Fargo.
good introductions to the characters, what they look like, what they do, um, and a good intro and a good end.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the circumstances that you talk about, I mean, that they go through, um, I, something that draws people in. Now, I have long said this is it's almost silly. I've long said that a perfect film isn't necessarily a great film. Whatever it sets out to be becomes sort of a perfect film. Um, and I would say that a good screenplay, if it is clear enough for and good enough for a director to make it, to be able to take it from there, the template, and put it on film, uh, then that's probably a very good screenplay.
Yes. What do you screenplays you think are the best? Like screenplays of movies that are based on novels, or like other plays or short stories.
Um, which are best in all those categories. Um,
Yeah.
Novels are difficult because they tend to they give us so much more. Um, Harry Potter, for instance. I mean, let's just talk about that really quickly. Um, Harry Potter gave us what was inside people's minds. If you have an omniscient character, we call it, somebody who is overseeing the whole thing and telling us the story, which is really true in Harry Potter. We we get to we get details that just we don't have time to put them on film, and it's not necessary. There's a richer quality to most novels. I think it's rare that a novel gets well translated, um, because it also has to have the tone of the novel. And it may have something to do with whether a narrative is a voiceover from one of the characters. Um, but I so I there may be limitations because of that, or a novel will also you'll have to take a piece of the novel, maybe one of the pieces of it to put it on 2 or 3 hour movie. Um, and maybe the stories are broader. I don't know. I think that's generally true. I may be talking out of nothing here, but I think that's generally true. I, Plays are interesting to put to make into a screenplay because I'll use an example that we don't all have, but A Chorus Line was a musical on Broadway, and the musical took place on one stage the entire time. It was just a stage, and that was the stage of the theater where people saw it. There's something unique about that and wonderful because it was an audition for a show, and so it was a director sitting in the audience talking to the people on the stage. The movie does not work because the location of the movie is not only in the confines of a theater, but it takes us outside of the theater. People are arriving to the theater, and even during the course of the audition, it takes us away from the stage and into dressing rooms and other parts of the theater, so that this wonderful feeling of we are all in the same spot, the audience and everyone in the stage play alike are all in that location. I think it did it. The film does a great disservice to the stage play. It's also a film about stage, which doesn't always translate either. Um, but um, that's the one that comes to mind right away. And when I was starting out, I always heard people say, "Well, a film has to um, has to breathe in a different way than a play does. It has if a play is adapted to a film, the film has to um, make that play larger. It has to give us different locations. It has to go places. And a film is about action, so you have to do this. Those broad terms I never like because a film is about dialogue and action. Like you said yourself, you love witty dialogue, um, and to me that's essential too. To most films, and films that I'm attracted to, an action film is not dialogue primarily. It's primarily the action. And
Right.
let me give you another example too. Um, I just finished a screenplay, and I tried an experiment. I tried writing the stage play at the same time. I had never done that before. I wanted to see if it really lived on stage as well. And what I found out is it doesn't, because a film can give you so many beautiful, subtle moments that are very, very telling in behavior. Somebody might do something. And it can also take you outside of a story in different ways that tell more about a character. Um, the stage play is all about dialogue, and I just found the dialogue was thin when I just placed it on stage. That it was created for a film. The words and dialogue that's character driven are very important, and more so than many other films that are especially action films. But what's doubly important is the action that takes place between the words and around the words. And some scenes are just action fully. It's a guy going up into a room and sorting out certain things and finding things in boxes, and somebody when somebody goes out on a back porch and just looks over things, it's an important thought that happens. Um, so I think again, that's a subjective question about whether one is easier than the other, or um, but I think that kind of answers what you're talking about, does it? Do
It does.
you want to talk about the structure of a screenplay?
Sure, let's go into that.
I mean, you've read them. Is that an easy thing to do? Is it enjoyable to read a screenplay for you?
It is. It's
Oh,
pretty interesting.
good. I think it's it's so essential. I've taught some students or been involved in teaching students some screenwriting in New York, and um, great care is taken by the instructors, and I've noticed this too, that um, the action has to be really concise because they'd like to make this flowery, and what you have are three basic elements. You have the scene names, the location for every scene that happens, and a scene is anything. If it changes a room into a different place, any location is a scene, um, and and the time of day is also placed on that scene. Or if it's continuous from a scene before, continuous is added to that. And then you have the description of what's happening in the scene through action, and then you have dialogue. There are some old elements that are not used as often, like the cut to, the quick cut, and that's a shot, kind of a shot. Uh, uh, that indicates a kind of a shot. And that may be important to the screenwriter because it tells you that, oh, this goes directly from this to this, and the time element is really important. It can't be a fade out. Um, but I don't see that as much anymore. Um, I see things being pretty lean, and I think uh, I, I I enjoy reading a good screenplay too, because if the action is right, you go there. You are in it. You can feel what's going on. You can absolutely see it. Um, but that's why also action just has to be only what you see, and not include other elements unless you want to, um, unless something is funny. So you're adding a fun element to that. And I don't have an example of that. But it exists in. Did you read the screenplay for Don't Look Up ever? Um,
I have.
Good. What's cool about Don't Look Up is it's got the it's got the quotes and things. It's got what is on the screen besides just telling us a place. It will make a comment about that, like, yeah, we really mean it. It's that wonderful quote about my grandfather. Um, I forgot what it was. It's in there, but there can be a character to a screenplay. I mean, a characterization of it that can be added within the action, and just to give whoever's reading it a sense of the fun of it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, um, but it's funny. It's really interesting to see the structure. When I was first, I think the first screenplay I attempted was in my 20s, and that was a while ago, only 50 years
Yeah.
ago, um, and uh, 45 years ago, and uh, then there was a question about what I didn't think I could write one, and actually what I did was write all the shots in it too. I'd say close up, and I thought I was going to do all that, but it's so unnecessary because that's why we have um, cinematographers, and that's why you have editors, and that's why people storyboard too, because then you'll see what it looks
Yes.
like.
How many like Academy Award winning screenplays are you familiar with?
Um, I five or six, and I'm thinking what they are, and I think they're all well deserved. And I'm not sure why. Is 1917 or I think it may be an award winning one.
Yeah, 1917 did get an Oscar nomination for
Right,
original
it's a
screen.
nomination. Yeah, yeah, nominees. There are several that I'm familiar with too, but I don't know what makes them so great, except that all the things you talked about, that they are witty dialogue, or if necessary, they are the action really is there, and what we see on screen is probably what was in the screenplay. That wasn't changed much,
Yeah.
um, and the circumstances are interesting, and we're drawn in, and all those. Um,
Yeah, like last year I remember at the Oscars, original screenplay was Belfast and adapted screenplay was Coda.
that's right. That's right. Belfast to me was pretty perfect.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think it translates beautifully from the screenplay into the film. It was partially because it was the people that it was dealing with, and the fact that I mean the language was incredible because it's something
It
we
was also kind of based on Kenneth Branagh's own upbringing in
yes,
Belfast, Ireland in the
yes.
60s.
Um, so that it had that extra heart there. I think that had a big quality about it. I mean, the fact that he translated his childhood into a very simple moment, a very short time in the life of those people. I like what they call slice of life movies, and I feel like that was very much one. I felt we were all drawn into this community and really had
Yes,
a
you were.
sense of it. And it helped that it was in black and white for me. It always does when
Oh,
something.
you thought the black and white was necessary because some people thought it wasn't.
Yeah, I think what it does for me, I'm not sure. I think what it does for me is it takes me to a time.
Mm.
But I'm also somebody who grew up with black and white TV, for instance, before color TV. So um, maybe that's part in my bones a little bit. And I don't know if that's a generational thing at all. Um, but when I see black and white, I don't see black and white. I see that's a signal for me, but I still color it. I mean, they're still living, breathing human beings, and I know their clothing is not all gray. And I don't
Like,
know.
can you imagine like watching Belfast in color?
I don't, I think it would have to be sepia, or it'd have to be decolorized a little bit, which is annoying to me because I either, yeah, but no, I can't because I think blood is important, and I think to see red might be, unnecessary. I don't know. Uh, I
Like
can't
if
imagine it. It's also
Yeah, like I think about like a lot of black and white movies I've seen. I think if I saw them color, if I saw um like Raging Bull in color, I wonder what that would look
I
like.
know, I know.
More bloody, right? I mean, like because
Yeah,
of like
especially that.
when Jake LaMotta, Robert De Niro's being punched in the face all those times in the ring, especially at the end by Sugar Ray Robinson,
God,
saying, "You can't take me down." Can you imagine like seeing all the blood on Robert De Niro's face when they were pulling him away from him?
God, and
They were trying to get him out of the ring.
it would feel distracting to me, I think,
I
because
think it would be disturbing because the film has been criticized for such violent content.
exactly. And can you imagine if it was realistically violent in that way? That's another thing. When I think it's heightened when it's black and white because we know what blood looks like, and now we can look at the violence in a different way. We don't have to experience it viscerally, violence because of the red. Um, I have to turn sometimes when I see something that is like somebody breaks something and bones are sticking through. And to me, that takes me out of the film because I'm thinking, oh God. But um, but I think what maybe you and I have are deciding that black and white can. I think it heightens it because it's not just about the blood; it's about the beating up. It's about the losing, the um, and everything that goes with that. And it's easier for somebody like me to get to that without having to sort through the blood.
So Blake, do you believe that the Academy actually reads screenplays before they select the winner, or do they just like watch the movie and determine if they win or not?
I think I think they read screenplays because my understanding is Academy voters. I have a couple friends who are, um, but they vote in categories. They vote in the category of their expertise. I have people who vote for actors who are actors, and I believe screenplays are voted on by screenwriters. I'm not sure, but I
Hmm.
think that that's true. I know designers are voted on by designers, um, and in all the categories, I believe that they are headed and voted on by people in that part of the industry.
Hmm.
I would hope so, and it looks like it, doesn't it? I mean, with the winners that and the nominees. Um,
Yeah.
I'll have to ask my friend Nancy Oliver, who was nominated for an Oscar for Jake and the Real Lars and the Real Girl. Jake, where did that come from? For Lars and the Real Girl, she lives in Sarasota. She
I've
was
heard of
out
that
at the
one.
time, but she talks about that experience. I would love to have you talk to her at some point. That would be kind of really neat because of her experience all around doing that. She may or may not want to talk to you about it because um, it was it was it was good for the most part, but it was also strange for her. She was
Huh.
also a writer on 6 Feet Under and story editor and on True Blood. Um, so she's been in the writer room too in L.A. and came from little old Sarasota, Florida. I was brought out there, um, and now she's back.
Hey guys, you want to be able to see that new movie on time? Well, now you can thanks to Nike shoes. These special sneakers will help you be able to get to the theater as fast as lightning and make sure you don't miss a single second of it. Order now. The Ukraine has been under severe devastation for quite some time. People are losing their homes and going hungry, and we need to help put a stop to it. Log on to donate.amnestyusa.org and donate now in order to help those people get through this difficult time. Thank you. Blake, what inspired you to be a screenwriter?
I love film.
Mm,
Um,
man.
I love. It came from playwriting, and I love playwriting because I love to create a world. Um, but what I love about screenwriting is you create the entire world. Um, and as as I write a screenplay, I get to experience this the film, even if it's never made. I get to experience it as a film in my head. Um, I think there's something rarefied about it, and not a lot of people can do it well. And I feel very good about how I approach screenwriting, and I I, th- I think understand it well enough to really come up with some fine pieces. I like to write about things that I enjoy and like and the kinds of people that I want to put out there in the world. Uh, the other part about screenwriting and anything in film is that it gets out there. It's that you can reach a lot of people, um, and that there's that thing about when it is written and then filmed. That's it. The screenwriter gives it over, and it's not like it's going to be done some other time with someone else, unless it's remade with that same screenplay, which doesn't happen. With a play, it's very different because you write it and it's out there, and then people can produce the play if they buy the rights, and again and again and again and again, and that can continue that way. But there's something I love about celluloid. I love something about well, we don't have celluloid anymore, but there's something I love about the film.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, so thanks, Blake, for stopping by and telling us about the power of screenwriting. Tune in next week when we have Caitlin Gull, where we discuss with her about the magic of voiceover in film and video gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.